A true franchise quarterback has eluded the Denver Broncos since Peyton Manning hung up his cleats. That was 3 seasons ago. Since Super Bowl 50, the Broncos have gone through 4 different starting quarterbacks. And as the team has mowed through the QB position, a return to the postseason has eluded the Broncos. It's not as if GM John Elway hasn't tried to find the guy for the Broncos. From acquiring Mark Sanchez via trade, to investing a first-round pick in Paxton Lynch, to trying to reignite an old flame with Brock Osweiler, to paying Case Keenum, Elway has tried fruitlessly to find the permanent franchise QB. And now Elway has come full circle after acquiring Joe Flacco via trade. The quest for the next franchise QB post-Manning began with a trade, and now Elway seems to be repeating the cycle. Trade. First round. Free agency. Trade. If a pattern has indeed emerged, does that mean the Broncos are poised to draft another QB in the first round? Most analysts in the know will tell you that it's highly unlikely the Broncos will spend their No. 10 pick on a QB. The logic goes something like this: Elway wants to win now, and with Vic Fangio in the fold and a proven QB under center, the priority becomes flooding the roster with non-QB impact players in the draft. Another trope: Elway is loath to spend a top 10 pick on a QB, because he doesn't want to pressure Flacco with a first-rounder nipping at his heels. I call hogwash on that particular theory. The NFL is about competition. The C word is the tide that raises all ships. Competition elevates the performance of every player in the NFL, and Flacco proved that in Baltimore last season after the Ravens spent a first round on Lamar Jackson. With Jackson hot on his heels, Flacco rose to the occasion. He was on pace for one of his best statistical seasons as a pro before suffering a hip injury. 9 starts in, giving the rookie that sliver of daylight and a path to the starting job. One can argue that once the Ravens made the Jackson pick, the writing was on the wall for Flacco. And I'd agree. It was only a matter of time, barring disaster and regression from Jackson, before the franchise would have grown impatient and supplanted Flacco. But it didn't have to happen right away, and it probably wouldn't have had the injury bug not struck Flacco. The same ethos holds true in Denver. A first-round QB would absolutely pressure Flacco, but in a positive way. The Broncos aren't married to Flacco. Elway doesn't owe Flacco anything. The NFL draft is coming. Don't miss any breaking news or in-depth analysis on the Broncos. Sign up for our free newsletter, and get every breaking story delivered to your inbox. Drafting a QB at pick 10 would simply acknowledge Flacco's 34-year-old age and communicate to the veteran that the expectation is to win now, or else. The writing is already on the wall for Flacco in Denver because of his age and contract. Elway would be remiss if he did not bolster the QB depth and add some badly needed talent to the depth chart. Sure, a rookie first-rounder would serve as a harbinger that Flacco's days as the starter are numbered, but the sand is already rapidly dwindling through the hourglass of his career. Elway might say publicly that he believes Flacco is still in his prime years, but Father Time would beg to differ. Best-case scenario? Flacco's got 3 more productive years left on the clock. Explain to me how that wouldn't jive with the addition of a first-round QB in this year's draft. Sure, the Broncos could kick the QB can down the road another year, and look to strike oil in the 2020 draft, but does Elway expect to be picking in the top 10 again next year? He surely doesn't. The vast majority of franchise quarterbacks are procured via the top 10 in the draft. It would cost Elway a heck of a lot more next year to maneuver and move up in the draft to get in favorable position to nab one of the top QBs of the 2020 class. Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock. If a Drew Lock or Dwayne Haskins or Kyler Murray, not likely, ended up in Denver by way of the 10th pick this year, it would start the clock for Flacco. He's got 3 years left on his deal, which would be the max window of time he'd receive to prove he was the more capable QB worthy of starting. More likely, Flacco would get 2019 to prove that his presence is indeed of the franchise caliber. But if you don't think Flacco is in the Mile High City on a series of 3 one-year auditions, you've got another thing coming. Just by virtue of his contract, the Broncos will be expecting big things from Flacco or else. He's making $18.5 million in 2019, followed by $20.25 million in 2020 and $25.25 million in 2021. Just as Case Keenum learned last year, paying $18 million per year or more to a QB who isn't winning is a bridge too far for Elway. So, if Flacco doesn't hit the ground running as the starter in Denver, he's guaranteed nothing beyond 2019 anyway. A rookie first-rounder would only crystallize that fact. And if in a perfect world, Luck, Haskins or Murray had to sit behind a winning Joe Flacco for 2 or 3 years, so be it. Osweiler sat behind Manning for 3.5 years, though Osweiler wasn't drafted in the first round, but he was viewed as the future franchise guy. Elway was perfectly content to let him sit. In the NFL, just as in life, teams have to strike while the iron's hot. If Peyton Manning is your QB, you've got to invest in free agents and stock the roster cupboards with role-playing talent in the draft and push to win Super Bowls, and if you're working with Joe Flacco as your guy, the onus is on you to hedge against the future while hoping for the best, especially if you're sitting on a top 10 pick, and make sure that there is in fact a plan B at the quarterback position. It will be hard for John Elway to resist the temptation to draft a blue-chip non-QB at 10. But if he's got the Broncos' long-term best interests at heart, he'll take that franchise-caliber signal caller with the 10th overall pick. And if Luck, Haskins or Murray aren't available at 10, so be it. Take that blue chipper to help Joe Flacco and Vic Fangio out of the gates, and draft a QB later on who at least displays some franchise tools and potentia. Elway's got 3 years left on his deal in Denver. The sun is still shining. And Elway's got to make some hay while there's still time left.